The first time Maya's world ended, it was with the gentle click of a suitcase latch. A sound so ordinary it failed to register as catastrophic until the taxi's taillights vanished around the corner, taking her husband and their shared future with them. She stood on the porch of their modest rental, the California night air unseasonably cold for May, clutching their 7-month-old daughter, Lily, who was wailing against her shoulder. The note was, in her other hand, the paper cheap and flimsy, the handwriting achingly familiar. "Maya, I'm so sorry. I can't do this. It's all too much. The crying, the bills, the responsibility. It's suffocating me. I've met someone. She's easier. Don't try to find me." The rent is paid until the end of the month. Ben. The words didn't make sense. They were fragments of a language she'd never learned, spelling out a reality she couldn't comprehend. Ben. Her Ben. Who had whispered promises against her skin. Who had cried joyful tears when the pregnancy test showed positive. Who had painted the nursery a soft, buttery yellow. That Ben had packed a single suitcase, withdrawn their entire meager savings of $200 from the joint account, and left. He was 24. She was 23. And just like that, the script of their lives was torn to shreds. The weeks that followed were a blur of survival, a desperate, fumbling dance performed in the fog of shock. The rent wasn't paid until the end of the month. The landlord, a man with cold eyes and a colder heart, informed her Ben had only paid for one more week. The eviction notice came swiftly, a formal decree of her failure. Friends offered couches, but their pitying looks and whispered conversations were a different kind of eviction, a removal from the world of coupledom and planned futures. She moved into a single room in a worn-down women's shelter, the air thick with the scent of bleach and despair. Lily's crib was a drawer lined with blankets. Maya's bed was a thin mattress on the floor. Each night, she'd lie awake, listening to the sounds of the city and the soft, trusting breaths of her daughter. A wave of pure terror washing over her so completely she felt she might drown in it. How did one do this alone? How did one pay for diapers, for formula, for a life? Her days became a relentless grind. She found a job as a waitress at a greasy spoon diner. The hours long, the pay minimal, the tips often worse. She'd strap Lily to her chest in a sling, the baby's head lolling against her as she balanced trays of pancakes and coffee, smiling through a fatigue so deep it felt like a physical weight. Her feet ached, her back screamed, her spirit felt frayed, a rope worn down to its final, desperate thread. The lowest point came on a rain-lashed Tuesday. Lily was feverish, her cries thin and reedy. The diner had sent her home early because business was slow. The rent for their new cockroach-infested studio was due, and her paycheck had been swallowed whole by a forgotten utility bill from the old apartment. Sitting on the floor, the damp seeping through her jeans, she counted the change in her wallet. 4.17. The cupboards held a half-eaten jar of banana mush and a few packets of instant oatmeal. Lily wailed, her small body burning up. The thermometer read 103.5. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced through the numb exhaustion. She had no car. The bus fare was 1.5 each way. The clinic had a copay she couldn't afford. She wrapped Lily in a blanket, her own hand shaking, and ran out into the downpour. The walk to the free clinic was 15 blocks, each step a lifetime. The rain soaked her to the bone, plastering her hair to her face, mixing with the hot, silent tears she could no longer hold back. She was failing. She was a terrible mother. She couldn't keep her child warm, or safe, or healthy. The thoughts were a vicious chorus in her head. In the bright, sterile light of the clinic, a kind-eyed nurse took one look at her shivering form and took charge. She cooed over Lily, administered baby Tylenol, and brought Maya a cup of terrible, lukewarm coffee. "You're doing great, honey," the nurse said softly, her hand a warm, brief comfort on Maya's shoulder. "Just breathe. She's going to be fine." Those simple words, that small act of kindness, were a lifeline. Sitting in that plastic chair, watching Lily's fever break and her breathing ease into the soft rhythm of sleep, something shifted inside Maya. The helpless terror receded, and in its place, a hard, diamond-like core of resolve began to form. This would not be her life. This would not be Lily's life. She would not be a victim of Ben's betrayal or circumstance's cruelty. She would become the architect of her own destiny. The fight began in earnest the next day. She applied for every form of government assistance she qualified for: food stamps, WIC, subsidized housing. The paperwork was humiliating, the lines long, but she swallowed her pride. For Lily, she would swallow anything. She also realized the diner was a dead end. It paid for existence, not a life. She needed a skill, a trade. One evening, while Lily slept, she scrolled through job listings on the shared computer at the library. Her eyes kept catching on postings for medical coders and billing specialists. They offered stable hours, benefits, and a living wage. It required certification. It felt like an impossible mountain to climb, but the image of that rain-soaked walk to the clinic was seared into her mind. She enrolled in an online certification course, paying for it in painful monthly installments. Her life became a brutal schedule of shifts at the diner, studying during her breaks and late into the night after Lily was asleep, and caring for her daughter. She existed on 4 hours of sleep, fueled by cheap coffee and a burning purpose. A year later, she passed the certification exam on the first try. She framed the certificate and hung it in their studio, a tangible testament to her will. Getting a job, however, was another battle. She had no experience. Rejection after rejection landed in her inbox. Finally, a small medical practice run by an elderly doctor, Dr. Evans, took a chance on her. He was nearing retirement, his practice was old-fashioned, and his filing system was chaotic. He saw her desperation, her sharp intelligence, and her unwavering work ethic. The pay was low, but it was a foot in the door. Maya attacked the job with the same ferocity she applied to everything. She organized the chaos, streamlined the billing, and taught the kindly, technophobic Dr. Evans how to use new software. She was the first to arrive and the last to leave, often bringing Lily to the office when daycare fell through, letting her nap on a blanket in the corner. She was working late one evening, inputting data, when she noticed a pattern of discrepancies in the billing for a specific insurance company. Dr. Evans was consistently undercharging for certain procedures, a legacy of his old-school, generous nature. Maya, using the advanced coding knowledge she'd continued to cultivate, recalibrated the entire billing structure for that insurer. The result was a 15% increase in reimbursements without raising patient costs. Dr. Evans was astonished. "My dear," he said, peering over his glasses, "you have a gift for this." He gave her a substantial raise, and for the first time, Maya wasn't just scraping by. She opened a savings account. She moved them into a clean, one-bedroom apartment with windows that let in the sun. But her ambition had been ignited. She saw the bigger picture, the inefficiencies, the lost revenue, the administrative nightmares that plagued small medical practices. During Lily's nap times and quiet evenings, she began to draft a business plan. She envisioned a consultancy firm that would help small, independent doctors navigate the complex world of modern medical billing and practice management. It was a terrifying leap. She had a stable job now, a comfortable, if modest, life. To leave that security was madness. But the memory of that 4.17 in her wallet was a powerful motivator. Security was an illusion. She had learned that the hard way. True security was building something herself. She spent 6 months preparing, saving every extra penny, refining her business model. She named her venture Apex Medical Management. She bought a single, professional suit for meetings. With a portfolio of the work she'd done for Dr. Evans, with his glowing permission, she began cold calling small practices. The rejections were brutal. Doors were slammed in her face, both literally and figuratively. Many doctors, almost all men of a certain generation, were dismissive of the young woman telling them how to run their businesses. But Maya had been forged in fire. Rejection was nothing compared to walking 15 blocks in the rain with a sick baby. Her break came from an unexpected place. Dr. Roshan Garcia, a brilliant young cardiologist, was struggling to keep her new practice afloat. The administrative burden was crushing her, stealing time from her patients. She heard about Maya from the medical grapevine and scheduled a meeting. Maya walked into Dr. Garcia's disorganized office and saw not a mess, but an opportunity. She laid out a clear, concise plan. She didn't just offer to handle billing. She offered a full practice management solution, scheduling, insurance verification, inventory management, the works. She quoted a price that was fair, but reflected the immense value she provided. Dr. Garcia, desperate and impressed, hired her on the spot. For 3 months, Maya worked day and night, often bringing Lily to the empty office after hours. She implemented new systems, trained the staff, and wrestled the chaotic books into submission. At the end of the quarter, she presented Dr. Roald Ag.R. Garcia with the results. Overhead was down 20%, revenue was up 35%, and the doctor had regained 10 hours a week to see patients. Dr. Garcia was not just a client. She became Maya's most powerful evangelist. She referred her to colleagues. One success led to another. Within 2 years, Apex Medical Management had 5 clients. Maya rented a small office and hired her first employee, a single mother herself, whom she trained with patience and understanding. The business grew not explosively, but steadily, organically, built on a bedrock of impeccable results and fierce loyalty. Maya became known for her razor-sharp mind, her integrity, and her surprising empathy. She never forgot what it was like to be at the bottom, struggling. She built a beautiful life for her and Lily. They moved into a house with a garden. She was there for every school play, every parent-teacher conference, every scraped knee. She taught Lily about resilience, about strength, about the unyielding power of a woman's will. Their bond was ironclad, forged in the fires of their early struggle. Lily grew into a bright, confident young woman. On the eve of her departure for college, a prestigious university on a full scholarship, she and Maya sat on the porch swing, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and purple. "I'm so proud of you, Mom," Lily said, her head on Maya's shoulder, just as it had been all those years ago. "You know, for a long time, my only memory of my father was that note, the one you showed me when I was old enough to understand." Maya's breath caught. She rarely thought of Ben anymore. He was a ghost from another lifetime. "But it's faded now," Lily continued, her voice soft but sure. "It's been overwritten by 1,000 other memories. Of you reading to me until you fell asleep from exhaustion. Of you teaching me how to balance a checkbook. Of you dancing in the kitchen with me when you landed your first client. You didn't just build a company, Mom. You built me. You are my whole story." Tears welled in Maya's eyes, but they were not tears of the old pain. They were tears of a profound, hard-won peace. The past, however, has a way of circling back when least expected. A few years later, Apex was a multi-million-dollar enterprise with a roster of prestigious clients. Maya was giving a keynote speech at a major healthcare conference in the city, talking about innovation and resilience in small practice management. She was eloquent, powerful, a respected figure in her industry. After her speech, as she was mingling near the stage, a man approached her. He was handsome in a faded, weary way, his suit a little too tight, his smile a little too practiced. It took her a moment, a disorienting lurch through time, to place him. Ben. He looked older, much older than the years should have allowed. There was a hollowness in his eyes she recognized all too well. It was the look of a life lived with regret. "Maya," he said, his voice a hesitant echo. I saw you speak. You were incredible." "Ben," she replied, her voice calm, neutral. The earth did not shake. The sky did not fall. He was just a man. I wanted to say hello, to see how you were." He shoved his hands in his pockets, a nervous habit she remembered. "I heard about your company. Apex. Wow, I always knew you were smart. But this—" "Thank you," she said, her tone polite but distant, the way one would speak to a vague acquaintance. An awkward silence descended. He cleared his throat. I left that woman, you know. The one it didn't last. Nothing really lasted." He looked at her, a plea in his eyes, searching for something, forgiveness, maybe, or a shred of their shared history. Maya felt a flicker of the old pain, but it was distant, like the echo of a thunderstorm from far away. She felt no anger, no hatred, just a faint, profound pity. "I'm sorry to hear that," she said, and she meant it. "And Lily?" he asked, the name tentative on his lips. "How is she?" A genuine, radiant smile touched Maya's lips. "She's extraordinary. She's in her 2nd year of medical school. Top of her class. She wants to be a pediatrician." The pride in her voice was unmistakable, a fortress he could not penetrate. Ben flinched, as if she'd struck him. He saw it then, the full measure of what he had abandoned, the life he had forfeited. Not just a struggling wife, but a dynasty of strong, incredible women he would never know. I'm glad, he whispered, the words seeming to cost him dearly. I'm glad she had you. She did, Maya said simply. There was no malice in it, just a simple, unassailable truth. He nodded, defeated by her grace. Well, it was good to see you, Maya. You look happy. I am, she said. And she was. It was the truest thing she had ever said to him. She watched him walk away, his shoulders slumped, disappearing into the crowd. He was a chapter she had closed long ago, a ghost finally laid to rest. She felt a final, quiet click of closure, not of a suitcase latch, but of a finished book being placed gently on a shelf. Later that evening, she stood on the balcony of her hotel suite, looking out at the glittering skyline of the city that had once been the backdrop to her deepest despair. The lights twinkled like a field of diamonds. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from Lily, a selfie of her in her lab coat, stethoscope around her neck, giving a thumbs up. The caption read, "Just finished a crazy shift. Thinking of you. Love you, Mom." Maya smiled, her heart swelling with a love so vast and powerful it felt like it could light up the entire city below. Her journey had begun with a click, a betrayal, and a terrifying walk in the rain. It had been paved with oatmeal packets, late-night study sessions, rejection, and relentless grit. She had built a life not in spite of her struggles, but because of them. She had been broken, and from those pieces, she had built a masterpiece. She was no longer the girl left on the porch. She was Maya of Apex. She was a mother. She was a success. And her story was far from over.